Hello and welcome to episode 131 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is February 21st, 2022. Today I'm wearing my Town Square shawl, which is a pattern by Romy Hill, and it's out of her book New Lace Knitting. And I knitted out of opal sock yarn as usual, but back then it was one of the opal subscription colors, the abo colors, and I knitted as part of the pattern battle, where everybody who takes part has to use the same color. Back then it was this color, but then everybody has to knit a different pattern. Most people knit socks. I try not to knit socks, sometimes I do. But with this one, I didn't knit socks, and I was able to swap for a second ball of this color. I gave away a different color from that subscription, and I was able to knit this big shawl out of 200 grams of opal sock yarn, plus a few grams of this bright green. So the first part of the triangle you knit like this. As you can see, the lines of the color lines are parallel like this. And you start at the top. You would think you start at the bottom and you increase stitches, but what you do is you start at the top, and instead of decreasing stitches, you knit short rows. So you collect all the stitches on the sides of the triangle, and then once you get down to the tip, you start knitting those stitches along those two sides of the triangle, and that's where I use the light green just to mark the switch in knitting direction, so to say, and then you keep knitting sideways along the two edges of the triangle, and you knit the border pattern, which has two different lace patterns. It's the smaller one with the nubs in between. The nubs aren't too visible with this colorful yarn, but I think it's okay. And then you have this big lace border, which I think is very beautiful. And then I put beads into the edge of the shawl. Not quite sure whether that's in the pattern or not. I like to do that whether or not it's in the pattern. So that's my Town Square shawl. And then I'm also wearing my Harvest cardigan by Tin Can Knits. It's a free pattern. It's a beginner-friendly pattern where you get lots of help, and the knitting is mostly quite simple. It's just a little bit, not really difficult, but I think the most complicated parts come right at the beginning when you start off with this bit. And then once you start knitting the raglan, it's really easy. And then once you finish the increases, it gets even easier. This is another opal yarn. It's their 8-ply or worsted weight yarn. And yeah, I love the color, and I put it aside to knit a cardigan for myself, and then never did. And that was, I think, the main reason behind the knit along for the Harvest cardigan, so I could finally get to knit this this cardigan. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. And then on to finished objects. I'll wear it like this because it's a bit cold here, so this is nice and warm. I can show off the patterns really nicely this way. You get to see the beads. Yep, I like it. Okay, finished objects. I have 3 finished objects today. The first one are the Hong Kong socks. This is another pattern battle, so it's another opal sock yarn out of their subscription. Oh, by the way, this colorway is now available in the Africa series. So that that hit the shops sometime. Was it in January? Or was it now in February? I don't know. I think it was planned for January, but it didn't arrive until beginning of February. So now this colorway is available. Is available. You can buy it. That's what I'm trying to say. With this colorway, I don't know yet. It's from the last subscription parcel, so we don't know yet whether that's going to appear in one of the regular color, not regular colorways, but regular lines or series of colors, so we don't know yet. But this was chosen for the pattern battle. I decided to knit the Hong Kong pattern out of Mina Phillips's Around the World in 8 Socks. And I'm going to donate the socks to the organization who help women with ovarian cancer here in Germany. And yeah, they ask for green socks, but they don't have to be completely green, so just any bit of green in the socks will do, and they will accept the socks and give it to women to give them warm feet and to give them information about how they can get help, and just to show them that people care and that they're not alone, not by themselves. Yeah, so these socks are done. I'm happy. It's a nice pattern. It's bright spring-like colors. So yeah, very happy I finished them. Then the next finished object is the mandala. I showed you last week that I was crocheting with the kids group I'm teaching on Monday afternoons, and I not only finished the crochet, but I also put it into one of these metal hoops. And the pattern was the pattern in the book that I used finished with this dark pink row, and I wanted to leave it that way, but then I didn't get the right size hoop. So this one would have been too big to just finish with the pink row, but the smaller one was too small, so I added one row. Just yeah, I just kind of followed this row here, and it's almost too big now, so it's a bit floppy, but I think it's not too bad, and once it's hanging somewhere, it won't show, and I think it looks quite nice. And I put it into my shop window, so it's a little sign of spring. We're waiting for the spring colors and the flowers to appear, so I think that's quite nice. I used the Catania. It's a pure cotton by Sachen, and yeah, really happy with it. And then the last finished object, I knit a few more tiny mini mochi things out of the book by Anna, however you say her last name. But if you look for Mochi Land or Mini Mochi, I'm sure you can find these things. And I knitted the little Christmas tree. And of course I gave it 2 eyes because everything looks cuter if it has eyes. This is the back of the little Christmas tree, and this is the front with the 2 eyes looking at you, and it has this yellow thing on top, and it has a little bit of blue and red decoration. I think it's really funny. And then the last thing I knitted is the tiny computer. So this is the computer screen, this is the keyboard, and this is the little mouse. And not only did the screen get eyes, but I also put 2 tiny eyes onto the mouse. In the book, all the eyes are stitched on the way I did with the mouse, but for the screen and also for the little tree, I prefer the eyes that I glue on, especially as I'm not giving this to any babies. So if you were going to use them as toys for little kids, it'd be safer to stitch them on, but as they are just for myself or for my son, who's all grown up, I glued on the eyes. And just to show you the complete set, the fried eggs were the first project from the book that I knit, and I've decided those 3 are enough for now. So I'm going to return the book back to the library and say it's enough for now. Enough tiny things. Yeah, so that's all the finished objects I have for this week. I only started 1 new project, so quite happy with myself. The one thing I haven't done that yet this year is pick up an old unfinished object to try and finish. So I have plans to do that, and I think I know which project I'm going for, but I'll talk about it more once I've actually sat down and started knitting on it again, because I need to find the pattern and I need to find the beads and so on. I'll let you know. Yeah, then on to works in progress. As usual, I start with my socks, and I can show you a half finished object because I finished my first 24-day sock by Emma from Potter and Bloom podcast. She very generously gave me this pattern. She said as a thank you for my podcasts, and also to see what her pattern would look like with opal sock yarn. So that's what I did. I used the colorful opal sock yarn as the contrast color. The black is the alpaca sock yarn by Hansa Farm. It's just so incredibly soft, but I think the two yarns work together really well. The gauge is absolutely the same. I really love the pattern. I think it's so nice with these little blips from the slip stitch pattern. And as I said last week, I used 5 different balls of opal sock yarn for the leg of the sock, and then I realized it's not really worth the effort because it just looks as if it was one colorful yarn. So from here for the foot, I just used one skein of opal yarn. And I meant to show you the 2 balls I want to use for the second sock. I forgot. I'll show you next week because the second sock is only this far. So I managed to cast on and knit 2 or 3 rows. So just to make sure that I have the cast on, so I won't delay doing that. So as soon as I start with the color work on that sock, I will have to get the balls, and then next week I can show you. Yeah, but this one's done. I'm really, really happy. Love the pattern. It's very nice. So if you want to have socks like these, go ahead and get the pattern from Emma, Potter and Bloom. And thank you again, Emma, for the beautiful pattern. The next sock I'm knitting is another half-finished object. So I'm knitting the Pink Lemonade pattern, which was a warm-up pattern for the Sock Madness last year. It's a free pattern over on Ravelry, and this is what it looks like. So it's a shorty sock, and my sister loves shorty socks, and she also chose the color. This is again the alpaca sock yarn by Hansa Farm, even though this says opal. And so it's really nice and soft. Yeah, it has this lace detail on one side of the foot. The other side is just very simple. Yeah, so finished that one. Same deal as with the other pair. Did the cast on, knit a few rows just to make sure it's I'm working on it. And so those are the 2 socks that I can keep working on this week, and maybe I'll cast on another pair of socks. You know that I like to have 3 pairs of socks on the go usually, so we'll see about that. Then the next project, which is like a small project with sock yarn which aren't socks, is my Quadracowl, which is a very genius pattern by the genius Martina Behm, and this is what it looks like at the moment. So I'm almost finished. It has a bit more work to do, but it's not too much. And so this half is opal sock yarn. It's another color from the subscription, from the abo, and I really, really like this rainbowy color. So this is what it looks like if you see the whole square. And the second half is hand-dyed yarn by Wolldackel. And I think it's just so amazing. When I was just knitting this, I thought this is quite bright and colorful and beautiful. I still think it's beautiful, but I don't think it's bright anymore. Because now that I'm knitting this, this is so bright. And I just love the rainbows that appear here and here and here. And every time the colors start mixing up, I'm waiting for the next rainbow to appear. So this is the second half of the Quadracowl, and the knitting itself is really easy because at first you just knit a square out by increasing 8 stitches every other round, and then you do another square, and all you do is decrease 4 stitches every other round. But instead of knitting like a pillow case, you knit this this amazing cowl, which is open here, and it's a very fascinating thing you have to do when you switch from one color to the other and from one direction to the other. And yeah, now my stitches are decreasing so much that the needle is getting too long. That's why I stopped knitting, and I will put in double pointed needles so I can eventually close the square and we'll have a finished cowl. It's really amazing. So these are the two spots where the colors meet. While you knit, you'll have a hole here, but all you do is you just use a bit of yarn and you sew it shut. Not a big deal. Same here. The important thing is to sew this shut while you can still access it from the inside. So before this hole becomes too small, it's a good idea to just go in there and sew this shut. And now all I have to do is finish like this bit here so that it's the same size as the first half. Yeah, I still have quite a bit of yarn left. I didn't finish the first skein of yarn, so I will have some left from this, and yeah, we'll see what I do with that. Do a square in my blanket and then see what I do with the leftover. The next project, which is sock yarn and small, is my new cast on, and I cast on a hat. I had promised to knit another hat for one of my brothers because he lost his hat years ago and I kept forgetting, and I thought, well, for this winter it'll be too late, but I should just knit several guys' hats or men's hats, and maybe I can sell a few in my shop, and I can definitely give one to him next autumn, so he has one for the winter. And what I'm using is this opal sock yarn with silk. I don't think it's available anymore. It was they produced it a few years ago and then stopped producing it again, so it was just like a one-off. And I still have some grey and some red, I think one blue one that I have left from this yarn, and I thought that'd be a really nice yarn for a hat. And because I didn't want to knit the fingering weight hat because it takes so long, I'm holding it double, and I started off with a 3.5mm needle, which gives it a really nice tight edge, but I think it's a bit too tight for the whole hat, so I switched to a 4mm needle, and I'm just going to knit up, then do some decreases, and I want this to be a folded brim like this, so it's going to be a really simple hat, but most guys I know like the simple hats, so that's what I'm doing here. And I'm not too sure about the size, so I sort of guessed the number of stitches I need, and if the hat fits me really well, I might even keep it for myself, because I always lose the black hats I knit for myself, or my sister knits for me. I've lost several hats that she's knitted for me, and I seem to never own a black hat or a dark grey hat, so maybe I'll keep it to myself. We'll see once it's done. But that's my new cast on, just an easygoing project where I don't have to think a lot. So then we come to the garments I am knitting, and I'm not going to show you the rainbow cardie, the black one, because I still haven't started the sleeve. I have the needle, I wound the yarn, but I just never got round to starting the sleeve. So I really hope to do this week so I can show you next week what I've done. But as for knitting sleeves, I finished my Raglano sleeves. So this is the 6-ply opal sock yarn out of their Rainforest series, and I finished both my sleeves. And right now I think the pullover looks really weird because it looks so skinny and long and weird, but that's because I knit 2x2 rib the whole time, so it's really, really flexible, and I might block the sleeves a bit wider when I first wash it, but I'm not too sure yet. So I'll have to finish it, I'll have to try it on, and then I'll wash it and I'll see what I do when I dry it. But for now, I can just start knitting the front and back. So the first 150 grams I used for the yoke and for this bit of the front and back, and then I used the next ball for the sleeves, and this is what I have left of the 150 grams. I didn't weigh it, so I'm not quite sure, but you can see it's not too much. So I think I'm going to start the third ball now for the front and back, so I don't have so many ends to weave in, because I think that will be enough. So I probably won't need this. And then I'll just have a few leftovers for some leftover projects. So that's the Raglano. And the next one is the Pappus pullover. That's the one I'm knitting out of Mohair silk by Hansa Farm in black. And this is what the Noro ball looks like today. So every week it looks different. Last week we had, I think, red and black and grey. And now we're down to black, green and grey and a tiny little bit of beige. And it's actually getting a lot smaller. So there are a few more colours in here. But yeah, it is actually getting smaller. And the pullover is growing. So that's what this looks like at the moment. It's these 3/4 or bracelet length sleeves. And this is what the front and back look like at the moment. So last week I think I was here at this teal color, and I've added in the red and the black and some grey and a bit of brown. And it's a nice length at the moment, but I still want it a bit longer. So right now it comes down to like my hip bone, upper hip bone. And yeah, as I said last week, it probably won't make it into a dress, but maybe either a long pullover or a tunic, something like that. So can't wait to see. But I tend to knit a few rounds and then try it on, and then knit and try it on. But I think that's the thing to do if you're not quite sure how long you want it, how long your yarn is going to last. And I always try to knit at least 2 colors before I try it on again. Yeah, so that's quite fun, and I can't wait to finish it. The next and last garment I have on my needles is the mealy vest, and for that I'm using opal sock yarn and the brushed alpaca by Hansa Farm, and those two mixed look like this. And as you can see, I've actually used the second light grey ball, because when I finished the first one, that was about here. It was just too high. It would have been a really short light grey vest and then lots and lots of black, and that wasn't what I was going for. So I decided to add in the second ball with the light grey, and I'll just keep knitting a bit further down. And I was thinking that I will do some black ribbing at the bottom, but maybe so that the button bands that I'm going to knit here and the ribbing at the bottom, that they are about the same length. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. I will do some small bit of ribbing with the black alpaca in the armholes, and then there's a folded over collar that you knit on top here, and there I'm not quite sure yet. I could either do it completely with the black alpaca, or I could do it half in the light grey and half in the black. So that's what I'm still debating. It depends a bit on how much I use up to go down, and I think I quite like the idea of having the collar in two colors. That's what my friend did, who already knit this vest. So I might go for the 2-color version. So that's that. And then, what else have I got? I crocheted a tiny little bit on my crochet squares that I showed you last week. And I still think it's a good idea to be crocheting 5 pieces at the same time. But all I managed to do is add 1 round to each of the squares. So I'm on the 4th color now. The next round will get me to the white on these and to the dark blue on these, and then the colors go back, reverse. I forgot to bring a finished one, but you saw them last week, so that should be okay. So I hope to put a bit more work in these this week, because I can't wait to start sewing the pieces together. And now it is getting a bit warm, so I'll just rearrange my shawl. Okay, yeah, then I added 2 squares on my memories blanket. I did, where are they? Here we go. So this is the side that I'm adding squares to at the moment. Last week I showed you those 2 squares, and this week I put this opal sock yarn and I used that color to knit a baby jacket, which I thought was a rather unusual color, but a lot of people liked it, and so this has already found a new owner. And this is another opal subscription color, and I knit another Martina Behm pattern. I knit the circle and square hat, and that was again part of a pattern battle, and I really liked the hat, and this was some of the leftover yarn. So 2 more squares in the blanket. I'm planning to, the next square I want to add, I want to knit this color from this sock. I think that fits in nicely here, and I'd hoped to do that yesterday, but I just didn't get around to doing that. But basically that's my plan, to finish a project, put it in the blanket. So at the moment I'm working on putting the old colors that I haven't put in yet, plus the new colors that I come up with at the moment at the same time, so that my blanket grows, and I don't have so many leftovers that I haven't put in yet. Yeah, and then that brings me to the knit along that we're doing. We're knitting the Wolkig, another Martina Behm pattern. I know I do a lot of Martina Behm patterns, but I just love her pattern so much. And I'm knitting with the Angora yarn by Seidenhase, which is a German dyer who have their own, it's not rabbits, is it? It's, whatever, they have their own animals and they get their own yarn, so we know that the animals have a good life and they're not treated badly, and then they spin the yarn, they dye it themselves, and this started off as a 50-gram ball and it's now down to 20 grams. So I really wanted to knit more than 3 grams a week, and all I managed to do was 4 grams, which is more than 3, but still. This is the Wolkig, a free pattern by Martina Behm. It's very easy to knit, and it creates this really fluffy and soft and yeah, stretchy material. And yeah, it is growing. I'm really happy to see it grow, but there's still quite a bit to do. And let's see how many grams I managed to knit this week. And yeah, we'll see how much longer it takes for this knit along to come to a close. So you still have lots of time to start your own Wolkig. Yeah, that was everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!